DQB. 3 letters that spell a lot more waiting for you and your DDS examiner. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Disability Quality Branch, what it is, what they do, and what that means for you. If you're ready for this, let's get it started. I'm going to share something with you that you probably don't know, and that is the DDS actually reviews their cases to make sure that the decisions are, in fact, accurate and correct. It may not happen all the time. Well, sometimes it happens all the time, but sometimes it doesn't. But the fact is, they do check out the cases to some degree before they're finished. So a good number of cases will pass through different kinds of reviews at the DDS. There's what's called an inline review. An inline review is when the case is still active and they're doing reviews while the case is pending. But oftentimes, the inline review is when the case is actually being prepared to close out of SSA's electronic systems. Then there are trainee cases where a person is in training, obviously, and they have a mentor or supervisor or a training assistant reviewing their cases throughout the disability evaluation process. There also may be targeted reviews at certain points in time based on certain criteria found in cases, such as a certain impairment that they want to focus on or a certain profile that the claimant has. But there is one review that not every case passes through, but when it does, best believe it's going to get reviewed real good. And that review is the Disability Quality Branch review. So let's go deeper on this. When a DDS examiner reaches a decision on a claim and that claim is closed out of SSA's electronic systems, that claim may be randomly sampled to go to the Disability Quality Branch. Now, I want to make sure that I stress to you that these cases are picked at random by DQB for them to review based on certain criteria that they're focused on in their office. DQB's job is to make sure that they go through this case with a fine-toothed comb to make sure that policy was followed in the decision, the documentation secured was appropriate, and any of the steps in the work leading up to the decision were made properly. When DQB finds something wrong in the decision, the documentation, or the procedures, they send this case back to the DDS. It's called a bounce because they're basically bouncing it back to the DDS to fix what was wrong in their decision. The DDS then has 2 options. Either they can accept the bounce and work on the claim to fix what's broken, or they can rebut it or disagree with DQB, which then leads to another level of review at what's called RPC. I'm not going to tell you the letters, it's not important to you, but basically RPC arbitrates between the DDS and DQB, and they make a determination on which office is correct. And whatever RPC hands down, that's what stands. But usually the DDS agrees with the bounce. They get the case back, they send the case back to the examiner who is working on it, and the examiner then begins to go through the case to make sure that they take the action that DQB is recommending. Sometimes DQB doesn't ask for the case back from the DDS once the DDS fixes what is broken. Sometimes they'll say, hey, when you make these corrections, you can close the case, you can send it back to the Social Security office, and then let the claimant know that the decision is finished. At other times, DQB will ask for the case back to make sure that what was done at the DDS to fix what's broken was actually done and done based on DQB's request. So in that situation, it's DQB's call to make sure that the case is completely done. Now, when I was working with Social Security and at the DDSs, I always told claimants and trained examiners to say, the decision is not final until the case gets back to the person's local Social Security office. This whole DQB process is exactly the reason why I have said that and continue to say it. Here's the logic behind it. The DQB can actually overturn a decision made at the DDS. So the DDS can decide that this case is a denial, and DQB can say, no, it should be an allowance. And vice versa. The DDS can say, well, we're going to allow this person. And then DQB can say, no, hold your roll before you start cutting any checks and doing any direct deposits. This should be a denial. So in essence, we're looking at DQB having the power and the authority to overturn the decision made at the DDS if they find that the decision at the DDS was not the right decision. This is why I've always said the case decision is not final until it gets back to the DDS. And this is also the reason why DDS examiners will never tell you your decision over the phone. As a matter of fact, they're trained not to talk about the decision at all, because if they say that the person is going to be allowed and they're telling the claimant, hey, you're going to get a check, and the claimant's like, oh, wow, I'm going to get paid. And then DQB says, nope, that's not going to happen. It should be a denial. Then the DDS examiner looks bad because they gave out a decision prematurely, and it frustrates the claimant because they were told one thing and now they're being told another. So telling someone their decision prematurely just makes things messy for the examiner and disappointing for the claimant. My advice to you, as someone who desires to get SSDI, your claim is at the DDS being worked on, and it may be getting close to a decision. My advice to you, do not ask the claimant what the decision is. In my opinion, to take it one step further, don't even ask them how the case is looking. So what you're actually doing when you ask that question is you're setting yourself up for discouragement. So do your best to be patient and wait for the DDS to make the decision and to make sure that the case actually gets back to your local Social Security office with a final decision. At best, what you could do is just ask the examiner if they have reached a decision. Find detail, find difference there. Ask the DDS examiner if they have come to a decision. Not ask them what the decision is, not ask how it's looking, but ask them if they've reached a decision. And then once you get an answer from them, based on their answer, if they say that, yes, we've made a decision, then give it about 10 days and follow up with your local office. You could ask them if DQB is reviewing the claim. I don't think there's any problem doing that. But you generally don't want to just ask for some inside information from the examiner on how your case is looking, whether good or bad. Just ask them, hey, just want to find out if you have reached a decision on my claim. If they say yes, you can say, well, are there any other reviews that need to be done? If they say yes, well, then wait about a few days, 10 days, 14 days, and follow up. If there are no other reviews, then you need to give the local office 10 to 14 days to follow up to find out if you can get the decision over the phone or if you can come into the office to find out what your situation is. Also, don't ask the examiner what the status is on the DQB review because they won't know. They're waiting just like you are. Just do your best to wait on the decision and make sure that it is a final decision. And the final decision is when the case is at your local Social Security office. Now, I will say that all Social Security offices, the local ones, don't operate the same way. So you have to just kind of use what I'm giving you as a rule of thumb or a general principle. I would say 10 to 14 days are reasonable time periods to follow up. You're not blowing up their phones every day to get the decision, but you're also not just waiting for long periods of time for them to give you some indication. I will say this, if your case is denied, you will get a denial notice in the mail pretty quickly after the decision. So if your case is denied, you will get a final decision in your mailbox. And that will wrap it up for this video dealing with the Disability Quality Branch. I hope this kind of helped you understand that everything is not on the DDS. There's another level of reviews that may happen with your case. So you have to plan accordingly and prepare for that eventuality if it ends up being something that you would have to deal with. That's all I got. There's more videos. Don't leave me hanging because I'm going to see you on the other side.